Not bad for a 45-year-old. Fedor Emelianenko knocks out Timothy Johnson in the very first round, a man he outages by 9 years. That is a respectable win for Fedor. I mean, most of the guys he's knocked out recently, like Quinton Jackson, Chael Sonnen, and Frank Mir, these guys are a bit over the hill as well. They've been in the game for such a long time. Not so much for Timothy Johnson. Even though Fedor is the more skilled and technical fighter, the age factor in MMA is so strong, it was very hard to expect Fedor to win this fight. But Fedor has aged differently than other fighters. The first thing to go with age is speed. Fedor has kept this speed strangely. I don't know how he did it, but he's extremely fast for a heavyweight still today. Even in modern terms, Fedor is extremely quick with his footwork and his hands. He's always had the power in his hands to knock out anybody in the world, so that is really never going to go. Just like all aging fighters, power is the last thing to go. And the sheer amount of force and speed that Fedor was able to unleash on Timothy Johnson's jaw was shocking. 3-punch combination in a second puts Timothy Johnson out cold. It's very difficult to name a heavyweight even today that could throw combinations like that with that much power behind it. Cyril Gane throws combos, but he's not that powerful. Alexander Volkov throws a lot of combinations, but again, not as powerful. Fedor is one of the few amount of heavyweights to ever exist that can do stuff like this, and he can even do it in his 40s. And credit to Fedor, because he didn't just come out there to wing haymakers and just blitz his opponent down and overwhelm him with his power, just swinging at the opponent before actually gauging for the knockout. Fedor actually played it a lot smarter. He was hanging back a little bit more on the southpaw, and he's had experience fighting southpaws recently in Chael Sonnen and Frank Mir, both southpaw fighters, so that absolutely helped him in this fight with Timothy Johnson. He was hand fighting with Johnson for the majority of the early parts of that round, and really gauging of where his right hand can land, because Fedor is not a guy who generally attacks and starts his combos with a jab. Very similar to how we saw in the UFC tonight with Sung Woo Choi. As an orthodox fighter, he starts his offense off of his power hand. He likes to throw in that right straight and rely on his speed to cross that distance. And even against Timothy Johnson, man, he could not deal with the speed that well. Not only if Fedor was offensive, but even when Fedor was defensive, moving away from the leg kick and moving away from the uppercut after he initially blitzed in. He was able to blitz in and retreat before Johnson was able to intercept him with an uppercut. That's how much faster he was than Johnson. And there was a moment at 4 minutes and 24 seconds of that first round where he pauses his aggression after going in for a blitz. He comes in there with that right lead, and because of how heavy he throws his right hand, he naturally shifts into either the parallel stance or the southpaw stance due to that momentum. He falls into a weak right hook from Johnson, who was not in a stance when he threw this punch. He was kind of in midair, so wasn't really able to plant into the punch. That could have spelled trouble for Fedor if Johnson had his feet under him. And Johnson was pawing out with the right jab and the right hook to counter Fedor's aggression. Fedor actually held back a bit and just watched. This is something that's not normal for Fedor Emelianenko. He normally doesn't do this sort of thing of just waiting back after throwing out a huge offensive combo. And what does he spot here? Johnson's hooks arc a bit higher than your normal hook. And Fedor watched this happen multiple times in the fight. When Timothy Johnson throws his right hook, he arcs it upward a little bit more than your normal fighter. This makes it a lot easier for Fedor to duck his head under that punch. And you will notice at 3 minutes and 29 seconds, which is not too far off from the finishing sequence, Fedor actually darts in again, and for the first time he ducks his head under that hook, downloading the data and knows he can get under that intercepting shot when he's throwing his right hand, because when Fedor's throwing his right hand, he likes to drop his left as well, which opens himself up to that right hook. Knowing that he can duck under it, he'll eventually feel safe on that ending sequence, because there as well, he ducks under the punch. And not only that, when Timothy Johnson wants to throw out his left hand, he brings it downward first before throwing it out there. Fedor was able to spot this when they were hand fighting with each other. Notice how Timothy Johnson brings that left hand down before he shoots it forward. And for the first time this happened, Fedor was able to see the telegraph and slip on the outside of the punch, and he backs away to download the data and reset himself. All of this reading eventually allowed him to secure that knockout. Notice here, Timothy Johnson is the one that actually moves forward this time, and he brings his left hand down. Fedor knows what it's going to be. It's going to be a left straight. So Fedor slips on the outside of it just like he did before. Johnson is blitzing in, looking for the knockout himself. He throws a right hand afterward, and Fedor is in a backward trajectory, moving away from the punches. This reckless aggression gets Timothy Johnson caught by that check left hook from Fedor, which resets the action entirely. And then Fedor starts stalking him. He starts to watch. He wants to see what else Timothy Johnson is going to throw out there. He sees the wind up on the right hook. He knows he can duck under it just like last time and land with a right hand down the center that leads up to the string of hooks. The reason why Timothy Johnson's left hand misses and goes a little bit too low is because he got caught by that right hand and throws off his aim. He got rocked by the first right hand, then the string of hooks, the first left hook, and then the second right hook finishes off the job, cementing another great win for Fedor Emelianenko. Ever since he came back and went to to Bellator, the guy has a positive record. He's 4-2 in Bellator, with a win against Timothy Johnson, who's regarded as one of the top guys in the heavyweight division. I know the heavyweight division in Bellator is not that stacked, but it's a great spot for Fedor. I mean, Johnson is a guy who went to a split decision with Cheick Kongo, and Cheick Kongo is a top contender in Bellator right now. That puts Fedor toward the top of the heavyweight division right now. And I just love to see someone like Fedor win, man. I've been a huge fan of his for such a long time. I was very scared for him in this fight. Fighting such a younger fighter and his chin is absolutely gone. I knew he was more technical. I knew he had the skill to beat someone like Timothy Johnson, but I'm never confident in his chin, even moving forward after this. He could put out anybody in the world, but one solid touch is the scariest thing in the world for Fedor right now. Thankfully, he came out of this fight unscathed, got hit once or twice, just like skidding punches, nothing really into them, and he came out of this as a top contender in the Bellator's heavyweight division. Now, the nervous thing about that is Fedor is going to have to fight one of the top guys like Cheick Kongo or something, or he's going to fight the interim champ, Valentin Moldavsky. Just imagine if Fedor Emelianenko becomes a heavyweight champion in Bellator. That would actually be a solid accomplishment in his career. To do it at 45 years old, he would be one of the oldest, possibly the oldest, major MMA world champion in history. If Fedor can actually accomplish that as well, that would do huge for his legacy, where a lot of people thought he should never have came back. If he's able to accomplish that, he proved all the doubters wrong, myself included. I thought he should have never have came back, but if he's able to be someone like Moldavsky, just hang it up at that point, you have nothing else to prove. One of the greatest fighters of all time.